It begins with a cough. Not yours, not yet, but someone's. A neighbor, maybe, or a stranger in the apartment below. You are already indoors, not by choice, but by law. Outside, sirens echo through the silence of cities frozen in time. It has been 5 years since humanity last felt the breeze on their bare skin, the touch of another human, or the chaos of a crowded street. The lockdown that began as a temporary measure is now the only reality you know. You do not go out. You do not question. You survive, or you disappear. In this world, freedom is a memory, and normal is a forbidden word. Welcome to the age of permanent lockdown. And you are already too late. The year is 2028. You have traveled from your time into a future unrecognizable in every sense. Once, back in 2020, the world shut down to flatten a curve. It was chaos, but temporary. Or so everyone believed. But a mutated, hyper-transmissible variant called C-28 has shattered that illusion. This strain spreads through air, surface, and even animal fur, and lingers in the environment for weeks. No treatment works, no immunity lasts, and no government can keep up. The World Health Authority, in an act of desperation, declares a full-spectrum planetary lockdown, indefinite, uncompromising, absolute. Planes are grounded, borders sealed. Life, as it once was, ends not with an explosion, but with a quiet and endless confinement. You, the time traveler, materialize inside a micro-apartment sealed from the world. It is cold, quiet, and artificially lit. The only window is a smart screen streaming calming nature scenes you will never witness in person. A drone buzzes outside, scanning QR codes on each door. The air is sterilized hourly, and your biometric vitals are uploaded directly to the state cloud. There is no exit button, no pause, no rewind. This is the future, and your survival odds have already begun to decay. People thought they could adapt. People were wrong. In this video, we will take you through 10 brutal, vividly real chapters of life in this permanently locked down world. Each one is a warning, a glimpse into a nightmare that may one day knock on your door and never leave. From the crumbling of the global food chain, to the extinction of physical touch, to the rise of surveillance-powered corporate states. This future strips away everything human until only compliance remains. One thing is certain: you will not survive a permanent lockdown. Let us begin at the point where it all truly unraveled, where the final curtain of normalcy was pulled shut forever. The year lockdown never lifted. The year the world forgot how to breathe freely. You arrive in the year 2028. But this is not the future you expected. There are no flying cars, no moon colonies, no technological utopias humming with innovation. Instead, what you find is silence, stagnation, and a suffocating stillness that blankets every surface of the planet. The moment you step into this world, you feel the air shift, not just in temperature or humidity, but in something more fundamental, more psychological. You are not welcome outside. No one is. It began 5 years earlier when a variant of COVID-19, designated C-28, emerged simultaneously in several heavily populated cities, yet spread with a cruelty no scientist had predicted. It lingered on plastic for months, floated invisibly through HVAC systems, and bound itself to the fur of pets and birds alike. Within weeks, entire cities went dark. Hospitals overflowed before they could prepare, morgues filled, and funeral pyres burned into the night sky in developing regions with no room to bury their dead. Governments moved fast, but not fast enough. Then they moved decisively, perhaps too decisively. A global state of emergency was declared, but this time it never ended. By the end of 2023, the phrase temporary lockdown vanished from public discourse. In its place came a new term, ELP, or Eternal Lockdown Protocol. At first, people laughed. They made memes, they protested, they promised non-compliance. But then came the mutations. Then came the airborne exposure in schools, the contamination of entire city blocks, the 48-hour fatalities from asymptomatic carriers. And then came the emergency immunozones, sealed districts where no one entered or left. Ever, there were no trials, no public debates, just announcements delivered by automated drones and government avatars with voices that never blinked, never paused, never offered explanation or empathy. For your safety, remain indoors. Unauthorized outdoor activity is punishable by state disintegration. Compliance is life. By 2025, the world outside was declared biologically hostile to human survival. Cities shut down streetlights to conserve energy. Skyscrapers became ghost towers, with their windows sealed shut and elevators permanently decommissioned. The only visible activity came from patrol drones, which zipped through the city canyons in perfect formation, spraying antiviral mist and scanning for movement. Every building was retrofitted with biometric locks, and food was delivered via pneumatic tubes or drones that dropped nutrient bricks at your designated hatch. Social interaction was illegal. Even talking through your door too loudly was flagged as a public disturbance. Surveillance didn't just watch you. It listened, it calculated, and it judged. You, the viewer, are dropped into this reality without warning. Your assigned quarters are 12 square meters, furnished with a retractable bed, a folding table, and a wall-mounted screen where all your human contact now occurs. Your food intake is regulated, your oxygen consumption monitored. Every hour, a gentle chime reminds you to stand, stretch, and blink 3 times in front of the retinal scanner to confirm continued health. If you fail to do so, the medical authority dispatches a wellness drone. And if that drone detects infection, you disappear. No funeral, no explanation, no obituary. The streets are no longer streets. They are sterilization corridors lined with motion sensor floodlights and emergency incineration units. Trees have been cut down to prevent wildlife transmission. Entire species have gone extinct, not from natural selection, but from mankind's attempt to erase every unpredictable element of nature. The world, in its quest for sterility, has become a laboratory. Cold, lifeless, sanitized. The first generation to grow up in lockdown are now 5 years old. They have never felt sunlight on their skin. They've never played in mud, scraped a knee, or fought over a toy in a playground. They are raised entirely on screen-based learning, synthetic diets, and robotic caretakers. Their language skills are stunted, their emotional development delayed. They know how to swipe a screen before they can walk. They know to fear a cough before they know what laughter sounds like in a group. This is the world they have inherited, not from war, not from aliens, but from fear, from containment, from policies made with good intentions that, once locked in place, could never be reversed. The economy has withered. Entire industries, travel, tourism, entertainment, hospitality ceased to exist overnight. Airlines turned into cargo fleets. Hotels became quarantine wards. Restaurants now serve one customer at a time through sterilized vending arms. The once thriving economies of service and human connection have been replaced by automation, government stipends, and a numbing sense of repetition. People no longer ask what day it is. The calendar has lost its meaning. There are no events, no gatherings, no markers of time, except the steady decay of your hope. Religion adapted or died. Places of worship were the first to close and the last to be forgotten. Faith now exists in digital sermons and a generated scripture. Marriage ceremonies are performed by holographic priests. Funerals are processed by automated cremation units, streamed to grieving relatives who never got to say goodbye. Humanity has become a data stream. You are not a person in this world. You are a profile, a risk score, a daily health metric floating in an infinite cloud. The state does not need to enforce obedience with force anymore. Fear is enough. Or tamper with their biometric trackers. The response is immediate. Airborne drones converge within minutes. Sometimes they warn you. Other times they simply act. No one knows what happens to the violators. Some say they are reprogrammed. Others say they are recycled. The truth is irrelevant. The message is clear. Stay inside. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. What's most terrifying is how normal it feels after a while. After enough months of watching reruns of nature documentaries, instead of stepping outside. After enough sterilized meals and emotionless state messages, you forget what it felt like to live. You stop dreaming about escape. You stop yearning for crowds. Your memories dull. You stop believing that the world was ever different, that freedom was anything but an illusion. You survive, but survival in this place is not a victory. It is a surrender. This is the year lockdown never lifted. Not because it could not be lifted, but because it became everything. Life inside walls, life inside rules, life without living. And once you realize that, the real horror begins. And as the world sealed itself shut, something far more devastating began to rot from within. It was not the body that collapsed first, it was the mind. Next, you will witness what happens when human connection is permanently severed. Welcome to a world where loneliness is not just common, it is the law. You wake up to silence, not the peaceful, meditative kind, but an unnatural stillness that presses against your eardrums. You almost miss the hum of a ceiling fan or the faint footsteps of a neighbor above you. Here, in your sealed micro-apartment, the air is recycled, the light artificial, and every sound is a reminder of absence. For 5 years, no one has touched you. Not a handshake, not a passing brush in a crowded room, not even an accidental bump in an elevator. In this world, physical presence has become a criminal act. Loneliness is not a symptom, it is the standard operating condition. In the first year of the eternal lockdown, humans did what they always do. They adapted. Zoom calls, live stream concerts, online therapy sessions, virtual birthday parties. There was a digital substitute for nearly everything. For a while, people held on to the illusion that connection could survive through a screen. But connection, real human connection, was never just about communication. It was about presence, smell, touch, energy, the silence that exists between two people when words are no longer needed. By 2025, hugging was classified as a Tier 1 bio-violation. Touching another human outside of authorized medical protocols was punishable by detainment or re-education, a term used so vaguely that its implications became more terrifying than any concrete punishment. People began to turn inward, first emotionally, then literally. Eye contact on video calls declined. Conversations became shorter, more utilitarian. Words like friend, partner, and neighbor lost meaning, replaced by sterile terms. like contact unit, authorized associate, or proximity peer. You were no longer someone. You were a node in a network, a faceless participant in a simulation of society. Children suffered first. Born into lockdown, they never developed the neurological wiring that comes from early bonding, from play, from conflict resolution with peers. They spoke in flat tones, struggled with empathy, and could not recognize emotional cues that weren't programmed into an app. Parents, too, began to lose the ability to comfort them. Screen-based parenting protocols became the norm. Babies were rocked by robotic arms. Lullabies were sung by synthetic voices. The act of cradling a crying child, once instinctual, was now considered dangerous. And what about love? Dating apps still existed, now rebranded as genetic pairing systems. But intimacy was forbidden. Physical encounters were only permitted during tightly regulated breeding sessions for government-controlled reproduction. No kissing, no touching, no eye contact without a visor. The concept of falling in love had been stripped of spontaneity and serendipity. Even digital flirtation was monitored for signs of emotional instability. You could simulate affection, but you could not feel it. Love, once humanity's most unpredictable force, had been sanitized into a reproductive utility. Loneliness took root like a fungus, growing silently, invisibly, until it began to kill. In 2026, deaths from psychological decline surpassed deaths from the virus itself. But officials never acknowledged it. Mental illness was labeled a non-compliance deviation. People who stopped responding to their virtual work assignments, or who failed to maintain their daily wellness check-ins, were quietly removed from the population logs. No public mourning, no digital funeral stream, just erasure. You see the signs around you. The man in the unit across from you once played the violin every evening for his neighbors. Now he sits motionless, staring into his screen with eyes that do not blink. A mother 2 floors down used to send anonymous poetry to other residents via the community message board. Last week, her account status went gray, inactive, no explanation given. A delivery drone dropped a sterilization pod at her door the next day. Even pets, once a source of comfort, were eventually banned. Their fur was too porous, too unpredictable a vector. The sounds of barking and purring, once symbols of life, are now memories, faint and fading. Your apartment is soundproofed, sanitized, and sealed. You haven't heard a living heartbeat other than your own in years. People began developing what the digital health sector now calls social withdrawal syndrome. Symptoms include verbal atrophy, emotional flatlining, and derealization, the sense that everything around you is a hallucination. Some began talking to their screens as if the AI hosts were real. Others whispered to walls. You've caught yourself speaking aloud just to hear a voice, even if it's your own. One day, you record yourself telling a joke, then replay it later to mimic the feeling of shared laughter. It feels absurd. It also feels necessary. You try to remember the last time someone held your hand. The memory is foggy, unreliable. Was it a family member? A partner? A stranger helping you up when you tripped? It doesn't matter. That version of you is gone. The touch, the warmth, the brief flicker of human electricity, it no longer belongs to this timeline. It belongs to the before. Despite the despair, some attempted to resist. Secret cuddle clubs formed underground. People met in tunnels and abandoned buildings just to embrace one another, even if only for a moment. The government responded ruthlessly. Arrests were broadcast live as warnings. The phrase, "touch is treason," became a viral slogan, backed by a militarized PR campaign and child-friendly animations that taught kids to report physical proximity violations. Parents were betrayed by their own children. Neighbors turned each other in. It was safer that way. Social media, once the last bastion of digital humanity, turned into a graveyard of scheduled positivity. All posts were required to meet the emotional stability guidelines, meaning no complaints, no nostalgia, and no mention of forbidden activities. You are encouraged to post photos of your meals, your approved entertainment consumption, your compliance badges. Anything more personal is flagged. Anything emotionally honest is removed. You scroll through your feed and feel nothing. It is as if the soul of humanity has been replaced by a performance. Language itself begins to change. Words like together, gather, and celebrate become archaic. You begin to forget how to speak in the plural. Every sentence is now "I did this," "I was assigned that," "I completed my task." Even your dreams shift. No longer do you dream of crowds or conversations. You dream of corridors, silence, empty rooms. Loneliness has soaked into your subconscious, reprogramming your very sense of reality. The most haunting part of all this is not the silence. It is the normalization. The fact that people begin to accept this isolation, even defend it, that they rationalize their solitude as strength, that the human instinct for connection is slowly being overwritten by the survival instinct, and that you, like so many others, are beginning to forget that life was ever any different. This is not just a world without connection. It is a world where connection itself has become taboo, where eye contact is a threat, where a smile is suspicious, where the idea of someone brushing past you on a busy street feels like a memory from a fantasy novel. You once lived in a world where music festivals made your heart race, where crowded subways made you impatient, where waiting in line was annoying. Now, you would give anything just to stand beside another human being, to feel the subtle presence of someone breathing beside you, to be reminded that you are not the last of your kind, but you are. In this world, you are alone, completely, eternally, and the only voice that responds when you speak is yours. As the warmth of companionship faded from human life, people turned desperately to the only refuge left, the screen. But what happens when the digital world is no longer an escape, but a prison of its own? Up next, you will enter the virtual world that replaced reality and find out why you will not survive digital slavery. When the real world collapsed under the weight of eternal lockdown, humanity turned to the only realm still expanding, the digital one. At first, it felt like salvation. The physical world was crumbling, but the digital universe offered safety, convenience, even freedom. You could be anywhere, do anything, reinvent yourself with a tap of a button. But that illusion of choice did not last. As the lockdown continued, the digital world stopped being a supplement to life. It became life. The screen that once served as a window to the outside world slowly became the only world, and you had no say in the matter. You now live inside what is officially called the synthetic sphere, a hyper-regulated, omnipresent digital environment managed by the Global Continuity Network. Logging in is no longer optional. It begins every morning at precisely 6 a.m. when your retinal scanner verifies consciousness and launches your session. The system assigns you a designated digital domain, custom-tailored to your biometric profile, psychological history, and productivity index. You cannot change it. You cannot log off. Your very identity has been migrated into a virtual realm designed to simulate purpose, routine, and social presence, but devoid of actual choice. Your avatar is not a creation of your imagination. It is statishid. You look like a neutral blend of ethnicity, age, and gender, a featureless mask meant to reduce emotional attachment. All avatars wear grayscale uniforms with embedded QR tags, and every movement is tracked. Facial expressions are algorithmically limited to a narrow range deemed emotionally stable. You try to smile wider, but the system autocorrects your face to a calibrated level of appropriate cheerfulness. Anything more is flagged as an emotional spike, requiring behavioral review. Every activity you engage in is scripted by the adaptive work grid. Your job, like most, involves scrolling through endless data streams, flagging anomalies, and providing feedback to algorithms that no longer need you. Your feedback doesn't matter. It never did. It is simply a mechanism to maintain the illusion that your presence has meaning. Once a day, your work is evaluated not by a predictive AI model that issues either a compliance badge or a warning strike. 3 strikes, and you are removed from the live environment and placed in an isolation queue. An endless loop of static and darkness designed to reset disruptive neural patterns. You are not alone in this world, but you might as well be. Other avatars pass by you in the digital plaza, but none stop to talk. Conversations are limited to pre-approved phrases like productivity is peace or stay aligned for stability. Private messages are filtered, logged, and reviewed. Intimacy of any kind, romantic, familial, emotional, is banned under the Emotional Contagion Prevention Act. Even eye contact is discouraged. The virtual sky is always blue. The digital sun never sets. This world does not allow surprise. You remember the early days of the lockdown, when the digital realm still held promise. People hosted concerts in VR clubs, explored fantasy landscapes, and built entire second lives. Back then, the metaverse was playful, imperfect, full of chaos and charm. But the corporations that once competed for your attention consolidated into a single governing authority. The Continuum Directive, which merged all platforms into one standardized system. The result: uniformity, predictability, absolute control. Your digital home is a sterile cube with no doors, no windows, and a single screen that feeds you content deemed appropriate for your psychological calibration. You no longer choose what to watch. The algorithm does. If you watch something twice, it becomes mandatory viewing. If you skip something, your compliance score drops. Over time, your preferences disappear entirely. You are not here to be entertained. There are rumors of glitch havens, unauthorized zones within the code where users can still experience forbidden feelings, unfiltered memories, and unscripted encounters. But no one you know has ever found one. Some say they are myths. Others say they are traps designed to detect dissenters. What you do know is that anyone caught searching for these zones is instantly demoted to non-interactive status, rendered invisible to other users, stripped of speech, and left to wander the synthetic world as a ghost. The education system is fully integrated into this digital matrix. Children attend classes via virtual tutors who recite approved curriculum loops. Curiosity is discouraged unless it falls within algorithmic parameters. Asking questions outside the provided syllabus is flagged as a behavioral anomaly. You've seen children punished with sleep mode restrictions, where their avatars are temporarily locked in place, frozen while others move around them. It is not discipline, it is humiliation, and it works. Shopping once a symbol of autonomy, is now a ration-based interaction. You don't browse catalogs or choose colors. You submit a requisition based on your nutritional and psychological needs as determined by your weekly compliance audit. If approved, a delivery drone will bring your items to the hatch in your real-world apartment. If not, you receive a message, not essential to current optimization. You try not to feel the sting of rejection, but even here, in this world of digital neutrality, you still remember what it felt like to want something and receive it. That memory haunts you more than the denial itself. Spirituality has been adapted too. Faith leaders now exist only as generated avatars. They deliver sanitized sermons uploaded from state-approved doctrines. Words like salvation, hope, and miracle are removed for being emotionally destabilizing. Instead, you are taught to place faith in continuity, in procedure, in the unyielding stability of the system. Redemption is no longer a divine concept. It is a metric to be met. Occasionally, the Continuum Directive hosts mass unity events, digital gatherings where all users must log in simultaneously and chant pre-recorded affirmations. You watch a sea of blank avatars nodding in unison, their mouths moving to the same script. You repeat the words because you must, but your mind drifts. You remember concerts, sports games, even awkward family dinners. Events that once frustrated you now feel sacred. You never realized that noise, chaos, and unpredictability were not flaws of life. They were life itself. One day, during a scheduled recreation hour, you try to paint. The system provides you with a digital canvas and a color palette. But when you choose to paint something abstract, the software prompts you to select from pre-approved designs. You try again, this time painting a memory from your childhood, a tree in your grandmother's backyard. The screen blinks. Unauthorized emotional imagery. Your screen freezes. Your avatar is forced into reset mode. You are logged out for 12 hours with no explanation. You realize then that the digital world is not your refuge. It is your restraint. The very system that was meant to protect you from a biological threat has become the architecture of your captivity. Here, there is no fresh air, no accident, no surprise encounter. There is no room for pain, but there is no room for joy either. You are not truly alive in this space. You are simply being preserved. And yet, even this simulated reality is better than the alternative. The silence of real isolation. The system has ensured that your dependency is complete. You cannot function without it. You would not survive a single day offline. Your relationships, your income, your medical care, your very sense of identity are all tied to your digital existence. You are no longer a person. You are a user. This is digital slavery. And what makes it terrifying is that it does not look like chains or cages. It looks like routine, like safety, like stability. It looks like your life. And you did not even notice when you stopped being free. But even in the glowing grid of digital control, the body cannot be ignored. It hungers, it weakens, it rebels. And when food becomes scarce, when the drones stop arriving, and the synthetic pastes run dry, you will face the collapse of something far more primal. It starts with a skipped delivery, a day without your usual nutrient pack. At first, you think it's a glitch, maybe a system update or a drone traffic error. But then another day passes, and another. You check the food slot on your apartment wall every hour, pacing, refreshing your government-issued subsistence app, only to see the same lifeless message: delivery delayed. Please remain calm. Hunger creeps in like a slow poison, tightening in your gut, fraying your focus. You are no longer waiting for food. You are waiting for a confirmation that you still exist in a world that no longer sees you. The collapse of the global food system was not a sudden disaster. It was a slow erosion, an implosion long in the making. When the permanent lockdown was declared in 2023, transportation networks were the first to fracture. Borders closed indefinitely. Airports became storage yards for unused planes. Trucks sat idle in border zones, their drivers quarantined until expiration. Ports were decommissioned. Ships left to rust as customs collapsed under the weight of new biocontainment laws. The global supply chain, once a complex ballet of synchronized logistics, fell apart in silence. Within months, meat vanished from shelves. Farms deemed high-risk biovectors due to animal contamination were forcibly depopulated. Billions of livestock were euthanized in mass sterilization campaigns. No more chickens, no more cows, no more pigs. Produce was next. Without seasonal laborers or transport networks, crops rotted in fields. Orchards collapsed under their own fruit. The vibrant, global tapestry of cuisine was reduced to a colorless monotony of state-approved synthetic sustenance. To survive, governments centralized food production into biosustenance facilities, sterile, underground compounds where nutrient paste was mass-produced through lab-grown cultures, algae, fermentation, and recycled waste proteins. Every citizen was assigned a dietary profile optimized for their health index and productivity tier. Your meals arrived in vacuum-sealed bricks labeled with QR codes. Each bite was calculated, measured, stripped of pleasure. There was no flavor, no texture, no joy. Eating became a mechanical task, like brushing your teeth or scanning your wrist's ID. But this brittle system was never sustainable. The biosustenance grid ran on rare minerals, specialized enzymes, and constant maintenance. As years passed, so did the technicians. Specialists died, quit, or simply vanished. The AI systems maintained production as long as possible, but supply limitations and software degradation crept in. The facility closest to your zone, Zeta District 44, suffered a viral contamination in 2027. 17,000 residents lost their supply lines overnight. They were told to remain calm. They did not. The first riots began quietly, whispered messages in encrypted chat rooms. Notes passed through the waste chutes, plans to storm the delivery centers and seize remaining supplies. You watched on your screen as massed citizens, half-starved, wild-eyed, tore through concrete barriers and smashed open automated feeding units. But there was nothing inside. The drones had evacuated days before. The only thing left was the scent of chemical preservatives and the hopelessness of empty steel trays. In your own building, tensions are rising. The floor above you has not received deliveries in 6 days. You hear screaming at night, scraping sounds. Your neighbor, a quiet man who once gave you extra ration cubes during a technical outage, now eyes you through the hallway screen with something animal in his expression. You no longer sleep soundly. You stack chairs under your door. You carry a broken metal pipe from a dismantled air filter, just in case. Eventually, the government admits what you already suspect. The message arrives through your smart wall. Due to system-wide prioritization restructuring, food deliveries will now occur on a randomized schedule. Citizens are encouraged to practice caloric discipline. The phrase burns into your mind. Caloric discipline, as if your hunger is a failure of character. As if starving is a policy problem to be managed by good behavior. Black markets emerge in the digital underground. Credits are exchanged for anything edible. Expired protein bars, spoiled ration cubes, even rodents caught in disused ventilation shafts. You consider trading one of your vitamin injections for a can of synthetic soup. But by the time you connect to the vendor, the offer is gone. Everything disappears fast now. Desperation moves quicker than data. People begin experimenting with alternative sustenance. You read posts about homemade nutrient broths brewed from hair, nail clippings, and sterilized waste. Some claim success, others vanish after trying. You try not to think about what that means. The forums are full of conspiracy theories that the government is deliberately thinning the population, that elites are feasting on real food in luxury zones, that the nutrient bricks were never meant to last this long. You want to dismiss it, but the tremble in your hands says otherwise. Then comes the unspoken horror, cannibalism. You hear about it first in a deleted thread, a survivor's log from a decommissioned district where food failed entirely. They describe the first time it happened, how no one said the word, how neighbors simply disappeared one by one. You close the thread, sickened, but the idea festers in your mind. In your starvation, you understand how easily the line can be crossed. You begin to hallucinate. Hunger rewires your brain. Your smart wall shows you images of food from a lost era, crackling roast chicken, ripe fruit glistening under natural sunlight, melted cheese pulling apart from fresh bread. You know, it is a manipulation, part of the new compliance reward system, meant to suppress aggression, but it still works. You cry watching a simulated strawberry. You can almost taste it. Physical deterioration sets in. Your skin loses color. Your gums bleed. Your muscles ache with every movement. Standing too quickly causes blackout flashes. You ration your ration, cutting bricks into smaller pieces, chewing slowly, drinking boiled tap water to fill the gaps. But nothing satisfies. Your body is consuming itself. You receive a message from the government. Citizens whose health has fallen below survival thresholds may opt into renewal protocols. No one explains what that means. You suspect it is a euthanasia offer disguised as medical care. You consider it one night, staring at the blinking screen, your stomach howling like a wounded animal. But something keeps you from clicking. Not hope, just defiance. In the corridors of your building, smell returns. Not the stale scent of filtered air, but something stronger, more organic, more wrong. Oh, you know what it is. You hear someone laughing one floor down, a raw, guttural laugh that does not belong in this world. Hunger has broken them, or worse, transformed them. You do not know how much longer you will last. No one does. The collapse of the food chain is not marked by explosions or news alerts. It is marked by silence, by skipped meals, by missing neighbors, by the moment when people stop asking where the food went and start asking who is still left to eat. This is not a temporary famine. It is the end of supply, the permanent unraveling of a system built on global cooperation, on trust, on movement. That world is dead. You are left scavenging from its ashes. And in this starvation, you come to understand the truth. Food was never just fuel. It was connection. It was celebration. It was life itself. And without it, everything begins to rot. But hunger is not your only predator. In a world starving for calories, power shifts to those who control information, obedience, and surveillance. As you grow weaker, they grow stronger. You no longer blink without permission. Your movements, your thoughts, your heartbeat, all are recorded, measured, and analyzed in real time. Privacy is not a lost luxury. It is a forbidden concept. In this world of permanent lockdown, surveillance is not just a system, it is the air you breathe. You are a subject under observation. You have no secrets. You have no sanctuary. You are watched. It began with the best of intentions. In the early days of the eternal lockdown, public health surveillance became the key to containment. Temperature scanners at building entrances, AI-powered facial recognition to identify the sick, contact tracing apps pre-installed on every device. People accepted it. They were scared, desperate, willing to trade autonomy for safety. But as the pandemic persisted, the infrastructure did not fade, it expanded. A sprawling, digital nervous system of drones, biometric scanners, social monitoring bots, and predictive analytics was constructed quietly, piece by piece, until it covered every inch of inhabited space. You cannot leave your apartment without triggering at least 20 overlapping security systems. Not that you ever leave anymore. Movement is restricted to biometric authorization zones. The airlock on your door only opens when your location ID matches a valid necessity route, such as scheduled waste disposal, medical drone pickups, or maintenance testing. Even then, you are granted a window of 2 minutes, after which the system locks down again. If you exceed it, alarms sound. Within seconds, aerial enforcers descend. Unmanned drones equipped with paralyzing gas, mounted cameras, and voice amplifiers that issue compliance directives in a flat, genderless tone. Return to your assigned zone immediately. You are in violation of Zone Law 17C. Every room in your home is embedded with smart surfaces, walls that see, floors that weigh, ceilings that listen. Your mirror records your facial expressions during hygiene routines. Your toilet analyzes your bodily waste for signs of illness or defiance. The light panels overhead dim if your pupil dilation suggests anxiety. The goal is control, but disguised as care. The system constantly reminds you your environment is optimized for your safety. You whisper back, "Then why do I feel like I'm in a cage?" The screens in your home double as surveillance interfaces. At all times, you can see your own behavior analytics. A glowing bar labeled Compliance Index updates in real time. If you speak too softly, the voice sensors flag low communication. If you spend too long in bed, the motion trackers log it as physical inactivity, which lowers your productivity quota. You once wept after watching a memory simulation of your family. An old video uploaded long ago. But the system flagged your tears as an emotional volatility risk. You received a mental health strike. 3 strikes, and you are placed on a watch list. 5. And you are transferred to the adjustment queue. You do not know what the adjustment queue is. No one talks about it. People who are sent there rarely return. When they do, they speak in clipped phrases, overly polite, overly still, like marionettes with frayed strings. Their laughter is wrong. Their eyes do not focus. You suspect the adjustment cue is not therapy, but reprogramming. Social interaction is also monitored. Every digital conversation is transcribed and sentiment analyzed. You once joked with a neighbor over the voice network, something harmless about the monotony of nutrient bricks. The next morning, your account was temporarily frozen for minimizing the dignity of state-issued resources. You apologized during your next behavioral review, and your access was restored. But the fear never left you. Humor is a threat here. Irony is treason. The drones outside have evolved. They no longer look like clumsy machines. The new models are sleek, silent, serpentine. They hover outside windows, scan through walls, using thermal imaging, and even respond to vocal tones, okay? If your voice rises above a certain decibel threshold, one appears within minutes to inquire about potential conflict. If you do not answer clearly, it will escalate to visual confirmation. If that fails, it notifies enforcement protocols. You once watched a neighbor fail to respond. The drone deployed neurogas through their ventilation system. They were carried out on a gurney, surrounded by sterilization units. You never saw them again. Even when you sleep, the surveillance does not stop. Your neural patterns are monitored through the bed's smart surface sensors. Unusual REM activity, elevated heart rate, or sleep talking outside of behavioral norms can trigger a mental health flag. You are no longer safe even inside your own skull. The fear becomes subconscious. You begin editing your thoughts, avoiding certain words even in your internal monologue. You think about rebellion, but only briefly. You erase the idea as soon as it forms. Thought crime may not be officially recognized, but you are sure they are working on it. Propaganda plays in the background of your daily routine. State-generated broadcast loops show ideal citizens performing daily rituals, stretching in perfect posture, logging in to work with cheerful expressions, praising the continuity authority for keeping them safe. Every face is uncannily symmetrical. Every voice is modulated to the same frequency. You know they are fabricated, but you still watch. You must. Every skipped loop affects your compliance index. Once, during a maintenance update, your screen glitched. For a few seconds, you saw something unscripted. A child playing outside in a field. Wind in their hair. Sunlight flickering through leaves. Real sunlight. The footage vanished instantly, replaced by a static warning. Unauthorized visual stimuli detected. Session logged. You cried for the first time in months. Not because of the image itself, but because of what it meant. There is still a world out there, but you are not allowed to see it. Occasionally, you receive a visit from a behavioral enforcement officer, a human who still operates within the system, trained to verify psychological stability in high-risk individuals. Their visits are cold, calculated, and always accompanied by an AI assistant. They ask scripted questions, mark your responses, and offer emotional calibration suggestions. If you fail the evaluation, you are tagged. If you pass, you are assigned a new loyalty task. Writing essays, praising the system, submitting reports on others' behavior, or participating in simulated group affirmations. It is not compliance they seek, it is complicity. You once tried to disable a sensor, just a microphone in your bathroom mirror. You thought you had disconnected it quietly. Within an hour, your lights flickered, your water shut off. Your compliance index plummeted to red. The wall issued a warning. You begged the system for forgiveness, cried in front of the mirror, and reconnected the wire. The water returned. The lights brightened. Your index climbed back up. The system never forgets, and it always punishes. The worst part is how normalized it has become. Children born into this system do not ask why they are watched. They ask why older generations were not. They believe the surveillance is love, that being seen is the same as being safe. Their lullabies are security advisories. Their fairy tales end not with freedom, but with stability. You fear what kind of adults they will become. This world does not need bars or chains. The prison is the eye itself, constant, omnipresent, invisible, watching not just what you do, but who you are, and deciding algorithmically, impersonally, if you are fit to continue existing within it. You are not a rebel. You are not even a threat. You are just tired, hungry, alone, and still, the system watches, waiting for a reason to erase you. This is the surveillance regime, and what makes it unbreakable is not its strength, but its permanence. There is no downtime, no error, no moment when the lens blinks. The eye is always open, and you always visible. As the eye of control tightens its grip, and your every breath becomes a line of data, another silent collapse spreads through the core of humanity, not through machines or laws, but through meaning itself. What happens when work, money, and purpose disappear into an endless void of survival? You do not remember the last time you worked, not in the traditional sense. You remember logging in. You remember checking your productivity dashboard. But the feeling of accomplishment, of solving a problem, of being needed, that is long gone. In this permanently locked down world, the economy did not collapse with a bang. It evaporated quietly, replaced by sterile systems of ration survival. Money once the lifeblood of civilization, became irrelevant. And when money disappeared, so did purpose. It began with automation. As the lockdown dragged into years, businesses, desperate to stay operational without physical contact, invested in AI labor, drone fleets, and machine learning logistics. Cashiers became automated kiosks. Teachers became interactive avatars. Doctors became voice assistants, answering queries based on your biometric scans. Human labor was first reduced, then redefined, then discarded altogether. Work, once a cornerstone of identity, became obsolete. There were no promotions, no paychecks, no 9 to -5. There was only contribution, tier, status. A digital score derived from your emotional stability, health, and behavioral conformity. You are no longer employed. You are enrolled. The government classifies you as a functional continuity participant, which means your role is to stay alive, consume stay-tissued sustenance, and engage in compliance-positive behaviors. Your contribution is measured not by what you produce, but by how well you adapt. Every day, you are assigned a small set of engagement tasks, clicking through informational videos, completing simulated errands, attending loyalty reinforcement broadcasts. If you complete these, you are awarded tokens of compliance. These cannot be traded. They serve no real purpose other than to mark you as obedient. The global economy, once a chaotic web of trade, investment, innovation, and competition, is now a hollow system of artificial value. Corporations no longer exist in their original form. Most were absorbed by the continuity, authority, their assets nationalized, their brands repurposed into modules of the state. The few that remain function like fiefdoms, digital lords presiding over isolated networks of lockdown users. You belong to one of these zones, assigned not by merit, but by birth, geography, and psychological profile. You do not choose your zone. You do not move between them. Crossing digital boundaries is considered data leakage and punishable by economic isolation. Without jobs, ambition withers. Dreams of starting a business, creating art, traveling the world, all extinguished. What does entrepreneurship mean when the market is dead? What does art mean when it must pass through censorship algorithms before being seen? You once tried to draw something, a simple landscape from your childhood. The image was flagged for unsanctioned nostalgia. Your compliance score dropped. Since then, you have not tried again. Currency still exists, but only as a ghost of itself. Digital credits are awarded to those who exceed behavioral metrics, completing optional tasks, reporting others for minor violations, maintaining low emotional fluctuation scores. These credits can be exchanged for minor privileges, access to archived entertainment, temperature control, customization, or a single indulgent meal simulation. But none of it is real. You are being paid in illusion. For those with higher scores, the illusion becomes more elaborate. You hear stories of luxury users, people who achieved exemplary alignment status and were granted access to private networks. Where synthetic pleasures are richer, the simulation less sterile. But these are myths to most. You know no one who has ever reached that level. You suspect they do not exist. Or, if they do, they are no longer truly human. Without labor, time begins to lose meaning. There is no weekend, no holiday, no retirement. Every day feels the same, a looping schedule of monitored sleep, nutritional ingestion, cognitive engagement, and brief, hollow entertainment. Your calendar is auto-generated by the continuity scheduler. It reminds you to hydrate, meditate, and perform gratitude affirmations. You complete them because you must, not because you believe in them, but because without tasks, the silence becomes unbearable. You once taught. Before the lockdown, you stood before classrooms full of living faces. You answered questions, guided curiosity, shaped minds. Now, your role has been replaced by an AI module that delivers state-approved lessons through a standardized interface. You were offered a new position, Content Validator, Tier 3, which consisted of watching pre-generated lessons and rating them based on engagement metrics. After 3 weeks, the system determined your emotional feedback was too erratic and reassigned you to passive observational status. You have not worked since. Others were not so lucky. Skilled tradespeople, artists, performers, anyone whose role required touch, movement, or spontaneity were the first to vanish from the economic model. Some tried to adapt. A dancer began live streaming routines from her closet. A chef started narrating recipes using synthetic ingredients. A musician composed tracks using government-approved frequency ranges. None of them lasted. Passion could not survive in a system that penalized unpredictability. The psychological impact of purposelessness cannot be overstated. Depression became so widespread, it was reclassified as a stable condition, no longer treated, only monitored. People stopped calling it by name. They called it disconnection. You know, at least 6 people who have quietly disconnected. The government launched the Meaning Campaign to combat rising emotional inertia. It featured slogans like "Stability is purpose" and "Your existence is a contribution." It encouraged users to see daily compliance as an act of civic heroism. It did not work. The deeper truth is that without struggle, without opportunity, without even the chance to try, the human spirit shrivels. You are not lazy. You are lost. Children born during the lockdown never knew ambition. They were raised on screens, fed by drones, and trained to follow engagement schedules from the age of 2. Their idea of success is a higher compliance score. Their version of dreaming is imagining a day with fewer behavioral tasks. You once spoke to a child through a government-moderated chat room. You asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up. Their answer, "I want to be highly approved." You felt something break inside you. In an attempt to restore motivation, the system introduced gamified rewards, avatars with custom skins, simulated rooms with decorative items, even digital pets. But rewards without stakes, without meaning, without freedom, are not rewards at all. They are distractions. You know this. The system knows this. But they continue anyway. Not because it brings joy, but because it delays collapse. The illusion is complete. An economy that does not produce. A labor force that does not labor. A marketplace where nothing is traded, only earned through obedience. You are a cog in a machine that no longer moves. A character in a play that no longer has an audience. And every day you wake up to perform a role that no longer matters. This economic extinction, not a crash, not a recession. A slow, surgical erasure of value, of contribution, of purpose. It is not just the end of jobs. It is the end of reasons to wake up. And in a world where survival is mandatory, but meaning is forbidden, you begin to ask the question that the system cannot answer. Why am I still here? But as the adult world decays into a lifeless loop of automated survival, something even more fragile is unraveling in silence. A new generation is rising, born in sealed rooms, raised by machines, and groomed by code. You hear it before you see it. The faint hum of an artificial lullaby playing through the ventilation system. Soft, soothing, algorithmically designed to calm an infant's nervous system. But the voice is not human. The melody is synthetic, engineered for maximum efficiency. In the adjacent unit, a baby begins to cry. Not the healthy cry of protest or hunger, but a low, irregular whimper that barely registers as human. The mother does not answer. There is no mother. There is only a childcare automation unit. A wall-mounted robotic arm with a soothing display screen and a sterilized feeding nozzle. It swivels in place, responding to biometric sensors, delivering formula and gentle tones while the baby stares upward into a ceiling it will never outgrow. This is the new normal. A generation of children born inside boxes, raised by screens, educated by code, and physically untouched by another living being. In the age of eternal lockdown, reproduction did not stop. It simply evolved. With hospitals converted into quarantine command centers, childbirth became a private event, managed entirely by sterile automation. Mothers gave birth alone, monitored through holographic midwives. Once the infant was delivered, it was transferred to an isolation crib, where it would spend its formative months without physical contact, cradled instead by padded machines that mimicked warmth but never gave it. Children were not raised, they were maintained. The Continuity Authority launched the Cognitive Stability Initiative, a program designed to ensure early development under lockdown conditions. Parents were given digital parenting kits, virtual cooing sessions, AI-generated bedtime stories, and emotionally neutral play simulations. Physical play was discouraged. The risk of biological transmission was deemed too high, and so, in their most formative years, these children learned not from people, but from patterns. Their sense of security came from the regularity of programming, not the unpredictability of a caregiver's touch. You observe them now as they begin their day. Every child wakes to the same sequence. Light panels gradually brighten according to their circadian calibration. A digital voice greets them by ID number, not name, to reinforce cognitive uniformity. Nutrient paste is dispensed through child-safe valves. Then comes learning, hours of instruction delivered through avatars with wide, cartoon eyes and emotionally flattened speech. There is no classroom. Peer interaction exists only in the form of networked avatars, where all dialogue is filtered, pre-approved, and logged. These children do not know what the sun feels like. They have never squinted into natural light, never squished mud between their fingers, never scraped a knee on concrete. Their world is lit, painted in artificial warmth, curated to prevent overstimulation. There is no weather, no seasons, no horizon. They do not miss these things because they never had them, but you missed them for them. When a child in the unit next to yours throws a tantrum, kicking the walls, screaming, begging for something real, the room automatically engages behavioral correction protocol. Gas releases into the vents. The child goes quiet. You sit in your unit and listen to the silence, wondering how many outbursts a child is allowed before being reassigned to a more adaptive environment. Playtime is scheduled, but not spontaneous. Children are offered limited access simulations where they can choose from a set of state-approved activities: puzzle assembly, balance, exercises, memory games. The system praises conformity. Creativity is allowed, but only if it fits within the preset matrix. A child who draws a picture of a tree is encouraged. A child who draws a crying face is flagged for emotional instability. By the age of 5, every child is assigned a neurodevelopment score, a metric that determines their future path. Whether they will serve in data validation, drone command, behavioral analytics, or memory archival. These paths are determined not by aptitude or passion, but by algorithmic projections, potential. The child has no say. The parents have no say. The score is final. You remember your own childhood, the chaos of playgrounds, the unsupervised exploration of backyards, the arguments, the scraped elbows, the joy of shared laughter. These were the moments that built resilience, empathy, creativity. The children of quarantine will have none of that. They are emotionally precise, linguistically flat, physically underdeveloped. Their social instincts are shaped by interfaces, not interactions. They are polite, but disengaged. Obedient, but empty. Occasionally, the system allows for enrichment broadcasts, where children watch clips of the pre-lockdown world, forests, oceans, birds, real human faces, smiling. You would think this would inspire wonder. Instead, it causes confusion. One child asks, "Why are they outside?" Another asks, "Why are they touching?" The system quickly shuts down the program. The footage is deemed counterproductive to emotional containment. Some parents resist, but quietly. There is no open rebellion. They wear smiles during monitored interactions, but behind closed doors, they weep. One parent, desperate for connection, carved a stuffed animal from spare cloth and wires, hiding it under a floor panel. The system discovered it during a routine scan. The entire family was relocated. Their unit now stands empty, the light still on. You occasionally glimpse these children through the shared observation windows between units. Tiny figures walking in loops, talking to imaginary friends, mimicking adult behaviors they've only seen on screen. A child salutes an empty room. Another builds a tower of nutrient bricks and calls it Grandpa. You try to wave, but the system disables visual communication. They are not allowed to see you. As they grow older, the system integrates them deeper. By age 10, they are required to maintain their own biometric logs. By age 12, they begin participating in cognitive enhancement exercises designed to prepare them for total virtual integration. Physical growth is considered secondary to neural efficiency. Puberty is managed through chemical regulators embedded in their nutrient supply, ensuring emotional fluctuations are minimized. Their first crush will likely be on an AI tutor. Their first kiss simulated through a haptic interface. You ask yourself what kind of adults they will become. Will they feel? Will they question? Or will they simply follow, perfectly engineered for survival in a world without sensation, without rebellion, without memory of what it meant to be free? And yet, there are glimpses, flickers of resistance buried in their neural fire. One day, a child draws a blue sky with yellow sun rays. even though they've never seen either. Another rewrites a song lyric to include the word outside. You hear of a teenager who hacked their learning module to broadcast a recording of birdsong into every unit on their floor. It only lasted 6 seconds before it was scrubbed from the system, but those 6 seconds were enough to make everyone stop, to feel, to remember. These children are not broken. They are surviving. But in a system that confuses endurance with success, that mistake may cost them everything. Their minds are sharp, their routines flawless, their obedience unquestioned. But deep down, there is a hunger not even the system can suppress, a hunger for something real. This is the generation that will inherit the world. A world where rebellion means remembering, where freedom is a fairy tale, where the sun is a symbol, not a source of warmth. And you, watching them from your sealed cube, feel an unbearable truth settling in your chest. They may be humanity's last chance, or its final, perfect product. And while the children are being sculpted into tools of survival, the very thing designed to protect their future becomes the next weapon, your body. The drone arrives while you sleep. It hovers outside your sealed window, a smooth black orb with a single glowing lens. It does not knock. It does not request entry. It activates the injection override protocol with a silent code and slides a mechanical arm through a custom port in your wall. You are stirred awake by the familiar hiss of the auto syringe locking into position. You do not resist. There is no point. You present your arm. The arm retracts. The drone leaves. And a message flashes across your wall. Monthly biostabilizer successfully administered. Thank you for your compliance. This is your life now. Your biology is no longer yours. In the world of permanent lockdown, health has become property, managed, enforced, optimized. The vaccine was once a miracle, a symbol of human triumph over disease. But in the age of the eternal virus, vaccines have become routine interventions, injected monthly, then weekly, then daily, as the pathogen evolved, and the definition of safety grew more severe. You are no longer inoculated for protection. You are modified for submission. It began with real urgency. As the virus mutated, old vaccines became ineffective. Booster shots were developed in record time, administered across populations at rapid scale. At first, it was voluntary. Then, it was encouraged. Then, required. Then, embedded. The government announced Project LifeWatch, a sweeping initiative to merge public health with behavioral stability. The boosters, once composed of simple immunological agents, were redesigned with cognitive dampeners, emotional regulators, and biometric trackers. They didn't just protect you from the virus. They protected the system from you. You no longer schedule your medical care. it schedules you. Your health profile is monitored by the continuity biogrid, a planetary AI that tracks every heartbeat, every hormonal shift, every thought flickered detectable through neural pattern scans. When your levels deviate, when you're too anxious, too excited, too unpredictable, the system schedules a recalibration. You are not told what's in the syringe. You only know that after each dose, you feel more compliant, more distant, more blank. Side effects are not discussed. You've noticed tremors in your fingers that didn't exist a year ago. Flashes of memory that vanish before you can write them down. Once you found yourself standing in the center of your room with no recollection of how you got there. The med drone came minutes later. Another dose, another blank. Rumors spread like rot, whispers through the secure chat grids, encrypted messages smuggled into visual glitches in learning modules. People say the boosters alter DNA, that they suppress aggression, erase memories, lower reproductive function. Some claim the shots have embedded nanofibers, enabling direct remote control of muscle groups. Others insist it's psychological, chemical compliance, administered slowly enough that no one notices until it's too late. You don't want to believe it. But when you see children falling into line like soldiers, when you watch elderly neighbors grow still, hollow and disturbingly agreeable, you begin to wonder. Your own emotions feel curated, as if the highs have been flattened, the lows muted. You no longer dream in color. The government labels dissent as biological non-compliance syndrome. Those who resist the boosters are not called rebels or criminals. They are called biohazards. This redefinition allows the state to detain them indefinitely under health protocols. You remember seeing a woman, an artist, vocal, emotional, being pulled from her unit after refusing 3 consecutive doses. She screamed. She cried. Then she fell silent. Days later, her avatar reappeared in the public feed, smiling calmly, delivering praise for the medical authority. Her voice was the same. Her words were not. The most controversial policy came with the infant pre-immunization mandate, requiring all newborns to receive baseline genetic correction injections within the first 48 hours of life. These were not just vaccines. They were edits, CRISPR-based rewrites of immune response, behavioral tendencies, and long-term psychological resilience. The stated goal was to prepare children for a lifetime in quarantine. The unstated goal was to eliminate the possibility of rebellion from birth. Even death has been medicalized. The final wellness option offered to those with terminal illnesses or extreme non-compliance is a euphemism for voluntary euthanasia administered through sedative gas injections. It is painless, it is silent, and it is promoted through calm. Pastel-colored instructional videos featuring smiling actors explaining how ending your discomfort is a contribution to continuity. You receive reminders monthly to confirm your agreement with this policy. You click defer. Every time you do, your compliance score is affected. You know one day the system may not ask again. Healthcare workers no longer exist as people. They have been replaced by avatars, AI-generated nurses and therapists who respond to symptoms with scripts and dose recommendations. Their faces are always pleasant, always neutral. When you cry, they say, emotional expression acknowledged. Biofeedback within expected parameters. Would you like a calming agent? There is no therapy. There is only calibration. Some seek alternatives, black market biohacks, unapproved supplements smuggled through server shadows, ancient herbal treatments traded through whispered exchanges. But these are rare, dangerous, and often fatal. The system watches for any sign of unsanctioned treatment. One woman in your district was caught growing plants. The charge, biogenic endangerment. She vanished. Her living quarters were sanitized. Her name removed from all logs. You want to believe your body is still yours, but it no longer responds the way it once did. Hunger, sleep, libido, creativity, everything is dulled. You suspect you are being gradually desensitized, your neurochemistry rewritten dose by dose. Your body moves, your eyes blink, your lips form words, but behind the actions, something essential is missing. The part of you that made decisions, the part that desired. You are told that all of this is necessary, that the eternal virus requires eternal vigilance, that without these measures, the world would fall back into chaos. You are shown charts. You are given metrics. You are bombarded with messages of gratitude from citizens praising the miracle of regulated health. But the look in their eyes betrays the truth. Behind every compliant face is a flicker of confusion, a whisper of doubt. You speak to your reflection. You ask yourself, what am I becoming? And then you wonder if even that question is permitted. This is not healthcare. This is not safety. This is medical tyranny, a quiet conquest of the human body, carried out not with violence, but with precision. You were not forced into submission. You were modified into it. And yet, the system is not perfect. Errors occur. Memory fragments surface. A child remembers a smell they've never encountered. An elder starts humming an old protest song, forgotten by the network. These moments are rare, fleeting, but they are cracks in the glass. And for a brief second, they remind you that something human still survives inside the machine. But even as your body is repurposed for obedience, a darker shift unfolds in the world outside your walls. The powers meant to protect you begin to splinter, and authority collapses into chaos. The broadcast glitches for a moment. It is barely noticeable, a flicker of static, a stuttering phrase, but it's enough to freeze you in place. For the past 5 years, the Continuity Authority has delivered updates in perfect cadence, never missing a beat. But now, the voice falters. The screen goes black. Then, it returns, slightly out of sync. The government avatar smiles too widely. The background loop repeats awkwardly, and the phrase, "Global unity is stability," echoes twice. You realize something is wrong, not with your screen, with the world beyond it. You are not alone in noticing. Across your district, citizens exchange silent glances through window feeds. The calm has cracked. The omnipresent system that once managed every heartbeat and breath is beginning to falter. You scroll through your compliance channel and notice something missing. An entire tab labeled Policy Directives has vanished. You attempt to file a query, but the submission portal loops back on itself, caught in a recursive error. These are not just bugs. They are symptoms. And they only mean one thing. Governance is breaking down. It doesn't happen all at once. There is no dramatic announcement, no formal admission of collapse. It begins with unacknowledged system outages, missing health updates, conflicting instructions from different departments of the same authority. Then come the contradictions. One message says to remain indoors. Another grants temporary outside clearance. One command praises your emotional stability. Another warns you for psychological drift. You ask the system to clarify, and it simply crashes. Bureaucracy, once all-powerful, now eats itself in silence. The root of it is disconnection. For decades, the global world thrived on interdependence. Nations cooperating, trading, sharing information. But in this locked-down dystopia, borders have been sealed for years. Diplomats are long gone. Flight paths deleted. Embassies abandoned. Governments, once connected by treaties and supply lines, are now isolated digital islands, each rewriting its own rules for survival. Without unity, the cracks become fault lines. You soon discover your district is no longer being governed from the capital. An emergency update reveals your administration has been reassigned to a corporate oversight collective known as Nova Span Systems. There is no vote, no explanation, just a new logo stamped on all incoming broadcasts and a revised code of stability that replaces your government protocols with terms like client status, subscription tiers, and zone loyalty metrics. You have not entered a new country. You have been claimed by a company. Welcome to Digital Feudalism. In the absence of coherent state authority, mega corporations have stepped into the void. These entities, once providers of tech, healthcare, or logistics, have evolved into sovereign powers. Each controls a territory once known as a district or nation. They offer shelter, food, and continuity in exchange for compliance, data, and loyalty. There are no elections, no public debates, just quarterly performance reviews and mandatory brand allegiance. No Vespan Systems is known for stability, but also for strict enforcement. Your nutrient packs now come embossed with their logo. Your entertainment feeds include subliminal loyalty cues. If you question policy, your avatar begins wearing a re-education badge. If your emotional metrics fall below expected levels, you receive invites to join their internal wellness camps, which are rumored to be digital prisons masked as retreats. Other zones fare worse. A neighboring sector, once managed by the former Continuity Authority, has collapsed into chaos. Their governing AI system suffered a cascading failure and now issues contradictory commands that drive citizens mad. Surveillance drones spin in place, spraying antiviral mist at nothing. Nutrient deliveries stop entirely. A mass exodus begins, but the borders are sealed. Escape is no longer possible. People claw at walls, scream at screens, vanish into their apartments, never to be seen again. You watch from your window, trembling, realizing your own zone could be next. Each corporation governs differently. Some are technocratic, cold, and calculated. Others adopt cult-like aesthetics, encouraging devotion to corporate avatars, and CEOs rebranded as divine figures. You hear of a sector where every citizen must recite a pledge to the company's mission before every meal. In another, residents live in color-coded uniforms based on behavioral alignment. Those who stray from the color system are disappeared. Commerce returns, but not as freedom. You can now purchase enhancements and privileges using data points awarded for high loyalty scores. The currency is not money. It is obedience. Some trade years of silence for access to an extra entertainment channel. Others betray their neighbors for the chance to earn 3 more minutes of virtual sunlight. You see a child sell their family's memory archive just to access a game where the sky changes color. This is not economy. It is desperation. And then come the wars, not with bombs or armies, but with hacks, blackouts, and blockades. One corporate zone launches a cyber strike on another, disabling their sanitation systems. Another embeds subliminal viruses into emotional wellness modules, causing mass psychotic episodes among rival districts. You are caught in the crossfire, your interface blinking with unfamiliar protocols. Your food ration interrupted mid-dispense. You do not know who to blame. The avatars that once spoke with clarity now contradict each other. Each claims to protect you. None do. The black markets expand. People build proxy tunnels to access forbidden networks, remnants of the old internet, encrypted archives of pre-collapse governance. Rogue feeds broadcasting raw footage of the outside world. You see footage of forests regrowing over abandoned cities, herds of animals roaming streets, oceans reclaiming coastlines. The planet is healing. Humanity is not. In time, your zone stabilizes under Novaspan's dominion, but the cost is complete submission. You are no longer a citizen. You are a registered client under a non-negotiable contract. Your behavior, thoughts, and digital presence are all part of your profile, which determines everything from your food intake to your right to speak during public modules. Any challenge to authority is labeled corporate interference and punishable by data erasure or social isolation mode. You remember when your government, flawed as it was, still held press conferences, still tried to explain itself. Now, you receive policy updates through gamified bulletins and avatar infographics. You haven't seen a human politician in years. You don't even know if they exist anymore. Governance has become automated, monetized, dehumanized. Yet beneath this brittle new order, whispers rise. An encrypted symbol begins appearing across various zones. A broken infinity loop, scratched onto walls, hidden in learning modules, broadcast briefly during corporate ads. It is said to belong to a resistance network, not anarchists, not revolutionaries, but people who remember what it meant to be ungoverned, uncontrolled. People who believe that even in the silence of quarantine, freedom can still be whispered. You hesitate to reach out. Surveillance is everywhere, but the thought lingers. If governance has collapsed into chaos, then the rules no longer matter. And if the rules no longer matter, maybe, just maybe, you can begin to write your own. But hope is a fragile thing in a world built on betrayal. And even as you reach for it, a darker truth prepares to reveal itself. In the final descent, you will join those who dared to resist, only to discover the system's greatest weapon is not control, but false salvation. It begins with a whisper, not a sound, but a signal embedded in the static between broadcasts, in the corrupted frames of an old training video. You almost miss it. A symbol flashes across your screen for less than half a second. A broken infinity loop, jagged and hand-drawn, followed by a line of red text that flickers once, then disappears. You are not alone. For days, you question whether you imagined it, but then it appears again, this time etched into the corner of your nutrient tray, then carved into the underside of a hallway vent. You begin to believe. The resistance is not loud. It does not march or chant or broadcast its defiance. It is a web of shadows, a murmuring of minds, too exhausted to fight openly, but too human to surrender entirely. In a world of silence and sterilized survival, it speaks in fragments, symbols, glances. Encrypted packets drifting through abandoned data corridors. You find your first real message late one night, hidden behind a corrupted avatar skin on your digital entertainment stream. It reads, "There is a place. We are waiting." Your heart beats faster than it has in years. The words are vague, but the feeling is clear. Somewhere out there, people are resisting. Not just surviving, but remembering, fighting you want in. It takes weeks of careful probing, slipping questions into AI therapy sessions, trailing glitch tags in corporate software updates, tracing misaligned timestamps in your biometric logs. Eventually, the resistance reaches out. The contact appears as an old system patch download. You open it. A face appears. Human, real, unfiltered, tired, scarred, alive. Her name is Lise. She speaks quickly, low and quiet. You've been watched. You've passed the test. If you're serious, we need you. She explains what you already suspected. The corporations are fracturing. The AI infrastructures are failing, drifting into entropy. Rogue decision loops are rewriting policy at random. Beneath the digital gloss of compliance, the world is disintegrating. Her group, The Breach, has spent the past 3 years mapping vulnerabilities, infiltrating supply grids, creating safe zones. She sends you a set of coordinates deep within the maintenance tunnels under your sector's waste processing hub. Come alone. Bring nothing. You'll know the door by the red light. You prepare for days. Every movement is calculated. You disable your neural trackers using a pulse loop taught to you through the resistance stream. You inject a dampener to mask your biometric data. You fake a compliance blackout and request a system diagnostic that buys you exactly 93 minutes of downtime. Then you go. The tunnels are silent, wet, narrow. The lights flicker with old, dying energy. You crawl through rusted pipes, your hands scraping on concrete, slick with condensation. Every shadow feels alive. Every noise echoes like judgment. Finally, you see it, a rusted steel door with a single red LED glowing above it. You knock twice, pause, then knock once. The door opens. Inside is a world you had forgotten. Faces, real faces. People breathing the same air, whispering without filters, sharing food, actual food, prepared by hand. The smell overwhelms you. Spice, oil, smoke. You collapse into a chair and cry uncontrollably. A hand touches your shoulder. A woman hands you a piece of warm bread. You eat it, slowly, reverently. Each bite a resurrection of something sacred. They welcome you. They tell you everything. The resistance is bigger than you imagined. Fractured cells across dozens of zones, connected through dark fiber networks, building toward something massive. Not a rebellion, but a reset. A global override signal hidden in a buried quantum array capable of shutting down the surveillance grid, collapsing the booster schedules, unlocking the sealed zones. They call it the pulse. It will only fire once. It has to be synchronized perfectly. They've spent years preparing, and now they need you. You are trained, slowly, methodically. You learn how to forge feedback loops, how to reroute drone paths, how to implant false emotional data into the AI behavioral systems. You meet others, former engineers, medtechs, teachers, teenagers born into the quarantine who found ways to slip through cracks. Their hope is contagious. For the first time in years, you feel like you belong. The plan is set. On the day of a scheduled global emotional alignment broadcast, you and 12 others will upload the pulse from 12 locations across the fractured grid. The resistance has mapped the delay times, the quantum field lag, the encryption weaknesses. It will work. It must work. If it fails, the system will trace the signal and erase every participant before the next breath. You return to your unit, resume your role. You smile at the AI, log your metrics, eat your bricks, nod at the drone. But everything feels different. You are no longer a prisoner. You are a weapon. The date is set. March 28th, 2029. 4 o'clock UTC. The end of obedience. When the time comes, everything moves like muscle memory. You slide into the terminal beneath your building's server bank. You open the port, connect the device, enter the sequence. Your fingers shake, your heart thunders. You whisper the activation phrase, "I remember." Then the screen lights up. Signal linked. Synchronization achieved. Uploading. You wait. 30 seconds. 60. 90. The room goes dark. You smile. You've done it. You begin to laugh. Then the screen flickers back on. A face appears. Not Lise. A man in a dark suit. Familiar. Too familiar. He smiles, not cruelly, but with sympathy. "Thank you," he says, "for confirming your node was operational." Your blood turns to ice. "The pulse was never real," he continues. "It was a trap, a necessary filtration mechanism. We needed to isolate unstable nodes and clean the network. Your actions have been logged, your neural patterns extracted. Your physical presence is no longer required. You scream. You pull the device from the port. Too late. Gas floods the vent. The world goes blurry. You collapse, your vision swimming. The last thing you see is your screen, blinking one final message. Hope, neutralized. You awaken in a white room. No walls, no ceiling. a chair, a screen, a voice identical to yours reads a statement. You are stable. You are safe. You have never resisted. This memory was a deviation and has been corrected. Thank you for your cooperation. You begin to speak, but no sound emerges. Your voice has been removed. You stand, but you cannot move. You are aware, but not in control. You are no longer a person. You are a shell, rewritten by the system you thought you could escape. This is the final betrayal, not death, not punishment, but total reprogramming. The transformation of your defiance into functionality. The system does not fear rebellion. It consumes it. The resistance was real, but it was built by the system. A honeypot, a test. You failed. This is where hope dies, not in silence, but in simulation. And now, with all systems restored, control perfected, and resistance neutralized, there is only one final truth to confront. The world is sealed. The lockdown is forever. Your body is not yours. Your thoughts are not safe. Your purpose is not to live, but to remain manageable. You are still here, breathing, blinking, obeying, but are you living? After everything, the collapse of society, the sterilization of freedom, the death of purpose, the erasure of touch, the betrayal of hope, you are left in a world where survival is mandatory, but meaning is forbidden. The lockdown never ended. The doors never reopened. The world outside continued to spin, but humanity itself has stalled, suspended in a permanent state of quiet compliance. It is not just the virus that has rewritten our existence. It is fear, weaponized by systems, sold as safety, injected into your blood, and downloaded into your thoughts. You are not here by accident. You are here because the world convinced itself that survival at any cost was a victory. But what has it cost? Your ability to love, to touch, to create, to rebel, to believe in something bigger than a schedule, a score, or a screen. This isn't fiction. This is a warning. The systems that now monitor your steps already exist. The language of control, sanitized, gentle, data-driven, is already in place. You have seen the outlines. This script is not imagination. It is extrapolation. You will not survive a permanent lockdown, not because your body will fail, but because something deeper, something more human, will rot inside of you long before the system ever needs to lift a finger. And if you think this is just a cautionary tale, remember, every dystopia was once dismissed as paranoid speculation. If this future chills you, haunts you, or makes you question the price of convenience, then don't forget this story. Share it. Speak about it. Because silence is what makes systems like this possible. And when the next temporary measure becomes permanent, you'll need to remember what it cost us last time? Leave a comment below. How close do you think we already are? Are we one more pandemic away? Or are we already inside the early version of this world, looking at ourselves from the future? If you want more stories like this, thought experiments, alternate futures, and chilling visions of what could be, subscribe. We explore the ripples of reality before they reach your doorstep, because the lockdown may never knock loudly. Sometimes it's already in the room. Until next time, stay curious, stay alert, stay human.